After the prior and disastrous campaigns in northern Africa and Tunisia, the Italian army would fall back to mainland Italy and to Sicily. After some debate among the Allies, they would invade Sicily on July 10, 1943, and the campaign would favor the Allies so much that before the campaign ended, Mussolini would be fired and the German army would pull out of Sicily. On July 25th, Mussolini would be dismissed as the Duce of Italy and be arrested, with the Grand Council of Fascism being replaced by the new Italian government, the Kingdom of Italy. Under the new government and their Prime Minister, Pietro Badoglio, they would start the 45 days period in which the government sought to make peace with the Allies and get help against Germany's potential invasion. Despite this, the government was officially sided with Germany and would suppress anti-fascist partisans. And at the same time, they tried probing their army to see if anyone would want to fight against the Nazis, but did so while writing for Germany, which just left their soldiers very confused, and it didn't help Italy at all. Also at this time, anti-fascist partisan groups would form to impede fascism in the country, and Italy would hold several meetings with Germany that would end so badly for Italy that Germany would start making their plans to invade Italy. On September 3rd, Italy would finally make an armistice with the Allies, ending the war between the countries. This took months to create and a lot of appealing from Italy, with them not getting the support they wanted to have, as the Nazis would eat them when they learned of the deal. 5 days later, at a random time in the afternoon, Badoglio would find out that Eisenhower was just going to announce the armistice with Italy to the world. And this freaked out the Italian government, as they hadn't yet built up an army or a plan to defend themselves against the encroaching Germans. Badoglio sent messages to Eisenhower pleading that they weren't ready for the announcement, but Eisenhower didn't care and gave it out at 6:30 p.m. After initially denying the announcement, Italy would confirm it at 7:42. The country would fall into dismay after Eisenhower cucked over every country involved but Germany. The Italian government would proceed to give out additional announcements that backtracked on the ones confirming the armistice and told their soldiers not to engage with Germany, who themselves gave out an order to attack Italy in all theaters of the war and started the invasion of Italy 8 minutes after their announcement. All of the contradicting announcements made Italy's army and people confused as to what was happening. The soldiers had no idea if they should side with the Nazis, the Kingdom of Italy, whose officials just fled south, or join an anti-fascist partisan group, or try to flee the country. The Nazis' steps in taking over Italy were to 1. Capture Rome, 2. Build defense lines across the country, being the Winter Lines, and 3. To free Mussolini and establish him as the leader of the German puppet state, the Italian Social Republic, known as the RSI. The Americans would be the first ones to land in Italy with the 5th Army under Lieutenant General Clark at Salerno on September 18th. The 5th Army would lead the Allies through the first and weakest winter lines, being the Barbara and Volturno lines. While the Allies were making their way to Naples, Kesselring, the German general commanding the German front, started construction on the Gustav Line along the Rapido River. The Allied forces faced many struggles making their way through the country. The main conflict raged from late September to May, being so cold and wet that planes were mostly unusable for the whole campaign. Germany built their defensive lines around the only 2 roads that led to Rome, both of which were ancient, with one of them being over 2,500 years old. In September, the Allies would finally reach the Gustav Line, which would prove nearly impossible for them to pass, with them having 4 main assaults over the course of 4 months. The first attack by the Allies was downed by the British 10th Corps on January 17th. The assault nearly instantly penetrated the Gustav Line, but failed to do so after they didn't receive any reinforcements. The next battle of the assault, the Battle of Rapido, was carried out by Walker, who ordered 2 divisions to break the line at night. The soldiers crossed the river but had to fall back after Lieutenant General Mark Clark pressed Major General Walker, the one in charge of the attack, to force the soldiers to cross again. The soldiers weren't able to make any advancements on the line and were forced into foxholes. Only 40 soldiers of the 141st Division managed to survive, and Clark decided to blame and fire Frederick Walker soon thereafter. Another attack was carried out at the same time by the 143rd Division, who were also just pushed back instantly. Clark's intent for these battles was to distract the Germans from his main assault in Anzio. The Allies would regroup and try to advance from north of Monte Cassino, heading south toward Monastery Hill. There, they would get behind the Gustav Line and make it to Monastery Hill, where they would be forced to retreat, ending the Allies' first assault on Monte Cassino. Clark's Major General Lucas led the naval invasion at Anzio on January 22, 1944, where he would remain uncontested until he chose to just stay put and let Kesselring regroup and surround them. The battle would last 136 days, as all the Allied generals were incredibly down. Clark would then fire Lucas and get a new Major General, Lucian Truscott. During the second assault on Monte Cassino, General Harold Alexander decided to bomb the abbey, which was only stationed with 200 plus religious people, with him arguing that it could have become a German base if he didn't bomb it, with him having no evidence to say so. And he just chose to bomb it, and only after he bombed it did Germany use the ruins of Monte Cassino as a base. This is one of the few times the Allies would bomb German fortifications, as the weather was so heinous and the bombs were incredibly inaccurate, with them usually killing hundreds of Italian civilians. Under Truscott, the Allies were able to break past Kesselring and Anzio, with him wanting to go east and cut off the army at Monte Cassino. But Clark wanted to instead go straight for Rome and take it out before the Brits could, letting Kesselring again regroup at the Gothic line after the Allies finally broke through the Gustav line. Monte Cassino and the Gustav line would eventually be broken before the Allies' fourth and final assault in May. This assault was led by Britain and Poland, with Poland having a bear named Wojtek as a corporal in their army. And while Wojtek didn't make much of a difference in the assault, he did help in carrying munitions and helping the soldiers feel less miserable. After the capture of Rome on June 4th, the Allies again debated whether or not they should chase the Nazis or focus their forces in France. Eventually, Churchill convinced the Americans that they should chase the Nazis after the continued successes of France, with him wanting to pull a Clark and beat Russia in invading Germany first. The Gothic Line would be the final stage of the campaign in Italy, which stalled out the conflict for another year due to Clark's throwing at Anzio. The conflict ranged from August 1944 to March 1945, with most of the fighting in August taking place at the Battle of Rimini. The Battle of Rimini would be one of the largest battles ever fought in Italy, with it gaining over 1.2 million combatants, centered around a line far stronger than that of the Gustav line. In luck for the Allies, the Italian partisan groups were finally surging to the size of an actual army. Unified mainly into the National Liberation Committee, they would prove far more skillful than that of the Allies. The Italian Royal Army also was ramping up at this point, with both of these forces finally being ready to help the Allies in the Battle of Rimini. The Allies would break through the several green lines that preluded the Gothic Line and the Gothic Line itself. But there was an issue, in that the Allies started diverting most of their troops to other fronts of the war. This, with the weather being just as bad as it was on the Gustav Line, forced the Allies to wait out until February to continue the campaign. And from February to May, the Germans also started negotiating in secret with the Americans for their surrender. As the weather improved in late February, the Allies started once again the Italian campaign, with the Germans at their last stronghold at the Po Line on the Po River. The Po Line would be finally broken on April 29th by the National Liberation Committee, with them capturing over 5,000 German soldiers before the Allies broke the line themselves. The partisans would also capture Mussolini on April 27th when he was trying to surrender to the UN after a failed attempt at escaping the country. And instead of doing that, the National Liberation Committee chose to execute him and hang his body.
This commercial was about a Parmesan Caesar salad, by the way. The commercial took Italian food, culturally appropriated it, weaponized it, and attacked Italian Americans with it. The media is not covering this outrageous commercial. In fact, there's a civil rights group on Facebook that gets attacked